This is the ultimate camera comparison video of Samsung Galaxy A35 versus Samsung Galaxy S24. Samsung's mid-range versus flagship. This may save you some money. And let the battle begin. This is a dual video recording feature of Samsung Galaxy A35. And this is Samsung Galaxy S24. Which phone is better? Now let's go to the image test. After a couple of videos to start this comparison test, let's start with the image comparison, and if you watch the totality of this video, you may save some money because this is a fight between a mid-range and a flagship Samsung. Both phones were set to auto mode out of the box, and we're shooting both indoors and outdoors. We're shooting sky, greenery, flowers, crowd, and random colorful things. We're also utilizing all sensors from the ultra-wide main and the telephoto. We're also shooting some macros. Let's start with colors, and the mid-range Galaxy A35 is as good as S24 in most situations. I would say on well-lit environment where you have enough light and the shutter speed is not compensating on the exposure. The dead giveaway on these two phones is the field of view. Galaxy A35 is more punching than S24. If you will just step back a little bit, you will have the same framing and same field of view on both phones. It has a cooler white balance in the flagship Samsung, and the colors are natural looking, which is a good thing because I think a lot of people like pixel-like colors, and you can always edit this on post. Also, I like the fact that the highlights are not blending in because sometimes flagship phones will tend to even out the colors of the strong light source, so it loses some of the colors there. And one good thing about the Galaxy mid-range is the 2x digital crop. It is as good as a native optical zoom, and you have a macro camera to go with it. While the new Samsung flagship S24 has more details, I noticed this when I'm looking on the fabrics on the teddy bears and some of the flowers. You would also get more on the shot because it's a wider field of view than Galaxy A35. And if you do some close-up shots, it has a better natural bokeh than the mid-range Samsung. You will see that the autofocus area is so much creamier without really using the portrait mode. I noticed that the colors are more saturated on the flagship S24, looking at the blue, yellow, brown, and green. I should say not all, but in most cases, they are brighter and more vivid than the mid-range. This phone also managed the highlights really well, not just on photos but on videos, but sometimes you would use multiple colors on strong light source. But what I love about Samsung S24 is the trifecta of the ultra-wide and telephoto that I feel would be more usable than a macro sensor because you could always punch in on the 3x optical zoom for macro shots. Looking quickly on the specification, both of them has a main sensor of 50 megapixel. The only difference is S24 has a bigger sensor, which you would get more light. Also, the resolution on the ultra-wide is 12 megapixel on S24 versus 8 megapixel on A35. And the last sensor is the battle between the 10 megapixel 3x optical zoom versus a good resolution 5 megapixel macro sensor on the mid-range Galaxy A35. Selfie camera has almost the same resolution, but the difference is the flagship phone has dual face detection autofocus, while there's none on A35. Going back to the comparison test, I feel like you would be happy owning Galaxy A35. If you're just a casual shooter, you will save a lot of money if you don't do gaming, shooting on low light situation, or vlogging on 8K video recording. And looking at all sensors from the ultra-wide and even the optical zoom, colors are consistent. Galaxy S24 has farther and more detailed reach than A35. This is Samsung Galaxy A35 in 4K 30 FPS using the ultra-wide lens. You will save some money if you buy this phone. If you're not looking for a flagship grade cameras, in well-lit situation, this phone will take similar photos as the Galaxy S24. If you don't need 8K video recording or night shot that much, then this phone will suffice. Now I'm using the selfie video recording on Galaxy A35. The dead giveaway is the size of the phone, but if you need a bigger screen, then Galaxy A35 is better than S24. Let's talk about portrait mode, and both phones are really good in portraits. Galaxy A35 has more contrast and deeper blacks compared to S24. It doesn't have the best cutout, but honestly the subject separation is more inviting on this phone because it has a creamier background blur, something you would see on more expensive cameras. If you don't nitpick on these two phones, it is as good as S24 with just few limitations. It actually has more details on the face, but also noisier than S24, so some people might want that kind of look. While the flagship Samsung is obviously better exposed than Galaxy A35, also the skin is smoother, so in a way, the photos on S24 is more beautified than the mid-range. It has two things that were done right. First is a better cutout on the subject. You will see a lot of mist on A35, and also you will have gradual blur, so the images on S24 looks like coming from a real camera with a faster lens. The skin tone on S24 is also warmer than A55, and you have 3 focal lengths from 1x, 2x, and 3x, which is 24mm, 50mm, and 85mm shots. Looking at the Selfie, S24 has a couple of advantages over A35. It has better exposure on challenging situation, and it also cleans up the noise better compared to the mid-range. Now going for night shots, this is where the flagship phone separates itself from the mid-range. You would obviously have better night shots on Galaxy S24, but Galaxy A35 is not so bad. There's no definite trend on the white balance, but the mid-range has better contrast on flaring, while Galaxy S24 I should say is more natural looking compared to A35, but it is way sharper and more detailed than Galaxy A35. It has way better exposure than the mid-range on the pitch black condition. It also cleans up the noise better. This is Samsung Galaxy S24 in 8K video recording. You got all the resolution, twice the resolution as the Galaxy A35 with the price tag. This also performs better in gaming because of the flagship processor. And obviously you have a better low light and night shot performance. You also have portrait video on Galaxy S24 in UHD or 4K 30 FPS. So if you need that background blur on your video, then this phone is better than A35. Let's talk about flaring, and both phones handle it really well from the ultra-wide lens to the main sensor. The only difference I see is the night shot, where A35 handled the contrast better than S24. In terms of highlights, if you look on the strong light source outside the window, you will see that there's a little bit more information on the flagship Galaxy S24. But one great thing about A35 is the dedicated macro lens. You would see that S24 struggles to shoot close-up shots using the main sensor. You can still do the 3x optical zoom, but it would not be as close as A35. Talking about sharpness, both phones are almost the same on the ultra-wide lens. Also the same sharpness looking at the main sensor. The main difference here is the sharpness on the zoom, because A35 is punching it digitally, while it's optical on S24, and also the flagship has better reach than A35. And lastly, the 50 megapixel battle, the details. And you would see that S24 is super crisp on this image. You would also see more details on the flagship S24. So this is the image test of Samsung Galaxy S24 and A35. Better portrait mode, night shot, and better reach on Galaxy S24. But not so bad on Galaxy A35. You will save a lot of money if you buy A35. Now let's do the video test from the stabilization, low light, and slow motion. First is the video zoom test, and Galaxy S24 has better details on the farthest reach. This is the slow motion test, and although Galaxy A35 is slower, but S24 has 4K slow motion. Now this is the stabilization test, and we're starting with walking. Both phones are really good on the ultra-wide lens. Now we're switching to the main sensor, and you would notice that S24 is seamless. Galaxy A35 just jumps to the main sensor. And this is a 2x digital crop versus a 3x optical zoom of S24. Now a couple of fast movement. This is the ultra wide lens while running. Galaxy A35 is a little bit jerky than S24. And this is the main sensor. All of them are shot in 4K 30 FPS, and the stabilization on S24 is a little bit better than A35. And lastly, low light video, and you will see that Galaxy S24 is better exposed than A35. Also, the mid-range is a little bit jerky while panning. Overall, I think Galaxy S24 is still the champ on this comparison test, because you will get all the flagship features on a camera phone, 8K video recording, portrait video, and better exposed low light images and videos. But if you're just a casual camera user who wants a decent performing camera, actually better than other mid-range competition, without buying the flagship phones, Galaxy A35 will save you some money.